Long time ago, I promised I would do a movie judging them based off their rating, and I would be ranking them from best to worst. So we'll be going from the bottom to the top. So my least favorite movie of 2021 is The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. This movie was a very disappointing movie. I have the movie on Blu-ray. It wasn't that great. So Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, I gave it a 4 out of 10. Some of the comedy did hit, but it wasn't as funny as the first movie. The plot wasn't as great as the first movie either, and it's just an overall hit as the first Bodyguard movie. I think the reason why they made a sequel to this because Lionsgate has no franchises, which is why they made a sequel to Hitman's Bodyguard. Even though I think that was not really a good idea. Next is Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It was okay. I gave it a 5 out of 10, but it was an okay movie. It isn't some sort of masterpiece or anything. It was just mediocre, and that's just the animation is not that great. It looked cheap, but it is basically just a Diary of a Wimpy Kid. You basically get what you get, and some people said the movie was completely horrendous and unforgivable. Overall, it was okay. Okay, it was mediocre. Next is the one that will piss people off. Enchanto. Enchanto is not that great of a movie. Enchanto is basically about these people with magical powers, and their entire village depends on these people with magical powers. Okay, it is completely dumb, completely stupid. Okay, some of the songs are okay, but they're not really deserving of being the best songs of all time. And the fandom of Enchanto isn't that great. But there are good parts of Enchanto. The animation is pretty well done, and the plot at sometimes is pretty decent. Definitely better than Turning Red, but definitely does not deserve Best Animated Feature of the Year. Coming at next would be Snake Eyes. I thought Snake Eyes was a pretty good movie. The action scenes are pretty good. All the G.I. Joe movies I thought were solid action movies. Again, I'm not a person who have read the comics, the comics and the old movies because I didn't grow up in the 80s. So a lot of the reason why the movie flopped because a lot of the fans of G.I. Joe did not want to see this movie, and I can't blame them if they didn't like the whole idea of Snake them quote unquote ruining the character by removing his mask and stuff. But I thought Henry Golding did a pretty good job as Snake Eyes. Next is Old. Old is a very strange movie. It's a very decisive movie. So basically, this movie, basically puts a new threat to society. Getting old. Yep, getting old is the big problem with Old. And that's the big problem with Old is us getting old. And it's a very scary thing in this movie. And it's done pretty okay. It's done pretty well. It isn't what you expect from a movie, basically. Basically they become old, and basically because of this island, their whole lives are thrown away, basically because they age very quickly. Maybe you could get Aubrey D. Gray to speed on the anti-aging faster, and maybe people can live on this island forever. But yeah. Next is the Boss Baby 2. So the Boss Baby 2 had one play funny scene, but I actually thought it was pretty good. The whole, this movie, I think this movie was better than the first one. The humor in the first movie was better, but this movie was more about the story. And basically about this evil baby who basically hated parents because he had bad parents. Which I couldn't blame him. If you've had bad parents, then you would probably hate this kid as well. But at the very end, for the first time with his wife, he had genuine love and affection in his wife and parents that actually wanted him. I thought that was a perfect ending for this movie, for a villain that basically just needed some love. Now again to The Free Guy. So Free Guy was an okay movie. It was made by, it has Ronald Reynolds in it. It has a bunch of YouTubers in it. And I used to hate some of the YouTubers that were in the movie, but I don't really hate them anymore because what's the point of hating other YouTubers? Maybe except for that Minecraft guy that has a very bad fan base, but I'm not gonna mention his name because I don't want to be torched by his fan base. But Free Guy was pretty okay. The humor was it was mid. It was mid, but it had a pretty good story, and it isn't as great as other comedy movies. These, but it was pretty fun movie. So, and basically, this guy realizes he's an NPC, and he basically saves his world. Pretty good story line overall. Next movie is a Tomorrow War, a movie that was basically pretty overrated. People like put it in like the top 10 movies of the year or something like that. No, it's not really. It's not top 10. Okay. And you know, yeah, and basically, you know, Tomorrow War was basically it's basically just like the Terminator. So if you like the Terminator, it's pretty good. But basically, it's this guy who's drafted to fight a war in the future. It's okay. It's not okay. It's pretty. It's good, but it's not a masterpiece like other people say it is. Next is Venom. So Venom is pretty fun, good. So basically, it's a short movie, but if you like Venom, you'll like this movie. This movie was kind of overhated a bit, but Venom Let There Be Carnage was a pretty good movie. You had a lot of good action scenes. You have a lot of funny moments with Venom, as well. I think this would add comedy to this as well because a lot of the interactions between Tom Hardy and Venom basically was pretty funny. And yeah. Next is Mortal Kombat. So basically, Mortal Kombat is very true to the video games of Mortal Kombat. Again, I don't understand why the critics hated this one so much. If you like, it's a game that is very, very true to the Mortal Kombat games. And I think if you're really big fan of Mortal Kombat, I think you'll definitely like this movie as well because they kept a lot of the gory stuff in Mortal Kombat. They also have a lot of the dangerous, fight scenes in Mortal Kombat. And yep, that's it about Mortal Kombat. So next, the 9 out of 10 movies. So coming at last place of the 9 out of 10 movies is Black Widow, another movie that I think is overhated. I did consider lowering Black Widow's score because it isn't as great as the other Marvel movies, but the Black Widow movie had a pretty good message of the family in the movie, and basically it was about Black Widow and the family trying to stop this guy who was basically controlling people, doing his evil bidding, and it was a good movie. Basically, I didn't understand the whole hatred towards the movie, especially by the Phantom Menace. It was definitely an overhated movie for sure, just like Cars 2. And, coming at next place is Shang-Chi. Yep, Shang-Chi is basically, it's very much like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, basically Kung Fu martial arts movie. And it was a pretty solid movie. I liked a lot of the fight scenes. It was pretty good. I liked the fact that, he's the master, Shang-Chi's the master of Kung Fu, and he has to fight his father, who is basically the master of the Ten Rings organization, because the Ten Rings manipulated him to be evil. But unlike his father, who was the real Mandarin, Shang-Chi, the rings were being used for good this time. And maybe he's to give them back to Sonic. Next is Nobody. So Nobody is people forgotten this movie, but it's much like John Wick. And it's basically about this guy who basically he is a nobody. And basically he got, he basically got robbed by these guys, and basically he wants to get revenge on these guys. It's a simple revenge story, but it's done pretty well. The action scenes are pretty good, and it shows that that there can be movies that are like John Wick. So next is the Suicide Squad. This movie almost ends on getting a 10, but I thought, with the exception of Spider-Man, this movie is better than all the Marvel movies this year. Suicide Squad had a lot of pretty good scenes. It's basically what the first Suicide Squad should have been. Okay, that's basically what this movie is. This movie should have been what the original Suicide Squad was. Okay, I know there are people who want the Aya cut to be released, but this is basically what the original Suicide Squad to be released. A fun movie that doesn't care about its rating, and just wants to be just to push the R rating as much as possible. A lot of gory fight scenes, a lot of battle scenes that are very, 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 very gory, and it's basically like the Mad Max movies. So yeah. Now we get into the movies that I can. Okay, not these two. These are not movies, but all of the movies that I think are the best. First is Godzilla vs. Kong. If you like Godzilla, you like this movie. If you like King Kong, you like this movie. And this movie is basically, I think, the best of the MonsterVerse movies, better than King of the Monsters. King of the Monsters was a very epic and amazing movie, but Godzilla vs. Kong is also a very epic and amazing movie. You have the the movie is about Godzilla and King Kong, and about King Kong going to the Hollow Earth, and Godzilla doing Godzilla things, and Godzilla trying to find King Kong, trying to find the source of this power, and and what Godzilla was really going after was Mecha Godzilla, who's the real villain of the movie. Pretty good twist overall in the Godzilla vs. Kong. So, yep. Coming at next place is The Mitchells vs. Machines, the movie I think sort of won Best Animated Feature of the Year. So basically, Fenrir the Black Widow, this movie is about family, but unlike Boss Baby and Encanto, this movie was one of the few movies that came out this year, and yeah, definitely Free Guy. And yeah, this movie's a better comedy movie than Free Guy. That this movie was genuinely funny. This movie was actually funny, okay? This movie was actually enjoyable and funny. So basically, it's about this dysfunctional family, the road trip, and then the robots take over the world. So it's basically like the Terminator, stuff like that. And basically, the whole reason why the robots take over was because some guy just threw away his phone, and his phone didn't like being replaced by the robots. So basically, C got angry and they said, "You know what? Fuck you! I'm gonna take over the world." So coming at next place is Ghostbusters Afterlife. So yeah, I think this is they're going. I don't know why they're doing it by this order, but Ghostbusters Afterlife is a pretty good movie. It's basically, if you like the Ghostbusters movies, and if you like the original Ghostbusters movie, you'll like this movie. I think the only way this movie has a 7.1 is because the Ghostbusters 2016 fans are still angry that this movie is better than Ghostbusters 2016. So they have to photo tantrums that this movie is better than 2016 and erases those city movies out of existence. But this gets a perfect score for a movie in Ghostbusters 2016. So this basically is just like Creed is a perfect passing of the torch movie to a new cast of Ghostbusters for a new generation. So yeah, if you like movies like Creed, which is basically like a passing of the torch movie to a new generation, Ghostbusters Afterlife is definitely a perfect movie. Coming in at, now we're going to talk about the top 3 movies of the year. Coming at number 3 is Spider-Man No Way Home. Yep, Spider-Man No Way Home is basically fan service the movie. They brought back the old Spider-Mans, and still it's pretty good. They brought back the old Spider-Mans. Okay, basically this movie, Spider-Man, Peter Parker wants to forget. Okay, I'm just calling by actor. Tom Holland wants to forget that people know who he is, and at the very, very end, he has to accept that this is the very reality and do the spell properly and send all of the villains back to the home and all the Spider-Mans back to the home. And also Tom Hardy's Venom as well back to his home as well. And basically at the very end, everybody forgets who he is. Everybody does not remember Spider-Man, Peter Parker. People remember who Spider-Man is, but not Peter Parker. Which will be a very interesting storyline to go throughout the next MCU movies. But this might be the last great MCU movie. So, yeah. Next is Dune. So, Dune, if you like sci-fi movies, if you like big, fancy sci-fi movies, Dune is basically a pretty good movie. So, it's basically an epic movie and similar in vein of the War of the Rings. And the only reason why I cared about the Oscars this year is because Dune was actually nominated for Best Picture, and of course, some random movie that literally nobody has seen won Best Picture, which is why people don't like the Oscars, because this movie deserved Best Picture over whoever Coda is. They're also making a sequel to Dune called Dune Part 2. And basically, this movie, I've seen Spider-Man away. I forgot to do that. But yeah, Dune already, you have the storylines. So basically, the storyline's the same as the Dune books. So yeah, basically, this family wants to control over the spice, and that's basically what it is. There's also the sandworms as well, pretty good, and you have basically like the war scenes and stuff, and basically these guys just want to have control over everything, and basically the main character is in this random place helping the native groups of Dune, and it really shows. And also, let's not forget the amazing cinematography in this movie. The amazing visual. This movie deserved all of its visual awards. This movie has to probably be one of the best looking movies ever made. That and Alita Battle Angel are probably the best looking movies ever made. And you can have an argument for Spider-Man because but Spider-Man's popular. But Dune is like actually one of the most well-made movies ever made. And yep. Number 1 is Zack Snyder's Justice League. So, this turned a movie that was complete trash into a masterpiece. Okay, the original Justice League, I thought was okay, but then they made this version. Why would I ever want to watch the original Justice League ever again? Okay, why would I ever want to watch the original when I can just watch this one? Okay, this one, they actually give motives. They actually give characters likability. This was actually supposed to be split into 2 movies, and it really shows that this is supposed to be split into 2 movies because there's literally 2 discs for one half of the movie and for the other half of the movie. This was supposed to be a 2-movie. This Justice League was supposed to be a 2-movie thing, and it was supposed to be split into 2 movies. They actually, without needing any backstory to these characters. They set up everything perfectly. They set up all the characters perfectly. They gave villain Steppenwolf from being a forgettable villain to actually giving him motives, to actually give him reason to be evil, to actually giving reasons to get the mother boxes. They give the heroes they actually give the heroes actual storylines, backstories in this movie. So if you just haven't seen any of the other DCEU movies, this is it, and you get confused by watching the other Justice League movie. They actually do everything much better than the original movie. And this movie, I think, is on par with the Avengers movies, which already do what this movie does in the movies as well. But unlike the Avengers has movies that establishes these characters. But Zack Snyder's Justice League establishes these characters in this world, and basically even makes, characters that I utterly did not like Ben Affleck's Batman, to actually likable because they actually gave these characters meaning and a purpose in this world, which was not that hard to do, and it's only costed like $70 million to make, because really all he did was make alterations to the movie, to add scenes, to add things to the movie, and overall it was a much better movie than the original Justice League. So yeah. And yeah, next year we're going to have the best movies of this year. So that's basically about this video. Goodbye.